In the major.
Good, great.
You have an opening statement? You just want to
No, no opening statement.
No opening statement? No speech?
No.
What do you see as from 12 months ago to now, the difference in Greg?
Put on a little bit of weight physically. He's done a great job with Coach McKnight in the offseason. Much more comfortable in his skin, quite honestly. The more he's been around you guys, the more y'all have asked him questions and put him on the spot, whether it be local, regional, national. It's helped him kind of get out of his shell a little bit and grow up as a leader, and seeing him take strides that way, this summer, and how he responded to his teammates in their off-season workouts. So he's done a really good job, and now it's time to put it to the test in fall camp.
What about maybe technically on the field and the things he's doing now as opposed to last year?
Well, because we're not allowed to get out on the field with a football, the last pass I saw him throw was in the spring game. But just in terms of how he's moving, stronger movements and stuff like that you see in the offseason, with Coach McKnight, we can watch him work out, but we can't see him out there on the field with football.
Major, was there a point, one specific point last season where you saw him elevate his game and take that next level? I mean, he had such a great year overall, but was there kind of a shining moment in your eyes?
There was ebbs and flows. There was games that he played better than others. The one game that kind of sticks out is the Navy game. He played very consistently throughout that game, from the first quarter to the finish. All those guys did, though there was like a competitive pride that was there after the UConn loss. But I think the thing with Greg is just not only having those high games, is just continuing to develop that consistency. That's what we'll talk to the offense tonight about, is consistency and playing clean football throughout fall camp.
Anthony on your left.
Major, Tom was mentioning that one of the big things is going to be replacing DeMarcus there, to find somebody to fill that spot. How are you guys going to go about that competition to fill that role?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's like any business, when there's someone that leaves the company and they have a high level of production, it's either got to be somebody to step up or others to step up and fill that void. So obviously it's going to be a combination of a couple guys to fill some of those roles. Some of the things that you do more of, you probably have to do less of. But then the new guys coming in, they have strengths too. So there's some things that they do well. So there's some things that those guys can do more. So we are going to have tremendous competition at all positions, but that will be one that we're obviously keeping our eyes on with the 3 or 4 guys that are really battling for that spot.
Major, what excites you the most about heading into 2016? What gets you fired up when you put your head on the pillow at night and think about what lies ahead?
Well, just the 2 things always. I mean, how do we get this team to come together, offensively I'm speaking, just cohesively? How do we come together, buy into the culture, create good winning habits each and every day? How do we mold our habits in fall camp, whether it be meeting rooms, whether it be walkthroughs, run-throughs, actual reps? So how do we come together as a team and develop how we're going to work? And then how do we as coaches find a way to get these new group of players in the end zone? And each year it's always a challenge, it's always different, it's always fun. Sometimes you lose a really nice toy, like DeMarcus, and you've got to find a different way to do it. And those are the challenges of being a coordinator, and those are the fun parts about the job.
How do you not change what you do when you're playing a big-time program like Oklahoma in the opener? How do you fight that? How do you resist that temptation? Like, wow, we got to do something special.
Well, I think the first thing you do is you just look at fall camp. The way that we look at it as a staff is, it's like going into basic training. I mean, we've got to learn how to make our beds, we've got to learn how to clean our rifle, we've got to learn how to march, we've got to learn how to do all these things as a team first before we're handed our orders and told to go, this is your opponent. So, and I use that lightly, but that's kind of the metaphor there. And so that's really what we're focused on, is how do we practice, how do we meet, where's our competitive focus, where's our mental and physical toughness in the dog days of fall camp. Those are the things that we really hung our hat on when things got tough last year, not the cute little defense or cute little play that we drew up. So, it's about the culture and what we're establishing there, and it's not so much about the opponent. We've got 12 guys on our schedule, so let's focus on our habits, how we practice, how we coach, and what we demand of each other, and then we'll get to our 12 opponents when that happens.
Major, if I'm not mistaken, you were in Austin when Duke committed to Texas, and talking with him recently, he said that when it came time to decide that he didn't want to look elsewhere, finding you here was a big reason why he decided to come. I was wondering, what did you see from him when you guys recruited him and he committed, and then the exchange that helped him get here last summer?
Well, I remember going to evaluate Duke with, ironically, Oscar Giles, who's on our staff too, who actually recruited that school, but I was recruiting the running back position. The first thing I saw when I walked out on the practice field was a quality running back practicing really hard in spring ball. And Coach Thompson over at Aldine done a great job with those guys, and they were very physical, and there's a lot of backs that might self-select and pull themselves out in the spring situation to keep themselves healthy for the fall. But he was, 100 miles an hour going at it. And the more time I spent with Dre and talked to him and talked about his mother and his dad and his siblings and just kind of what kind of kid he was, and from Pee Wee to junior high to high school, he just had a really great name in the community, and I liked it. He was a guy who wasn't too good to practice on one of those spring days. He went hard all the time. He had, obviously great physical abilities as a running back, and then he had great parents and a great family life and was respected as a community, so I felt like the guy was going to be what he said he is, which is a straight-up dude.
What else, you've had a chance to talk to Greg since he got back from the Manning camp. You had mentioned what a benefit it was for him to go, but did you get any feedback from him, just what you wanted to hear, what he learned there while he was?
Yeah, because they were working with those guys so much, quite honestly, he said, the first day he came back, he said, I don't want to be a coach. So I found that ironic because, he's out there busting his tail from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. coaching those guys, but had a great time coaching. I think he just enjoyed the atmosphere of being around the quarterbacks and talking plays, techniques, practice habits, and all of those type of things. And then obviously being exposed to pros. He really enjoyed his time around Peyton when he could be around him, and Eli as well. And then obviously they had a couple throw sessions where he picked up some things. And, a few drills, and, Peyton talked to him about his footwork and stuff like that. So just a chance for him to get away for 72 hours and really hone his craft.
Major, last season, offensively, you guys had to deal with a ton of injuries. How's that helped coming into this year and getting those young guys some playing time? And then also with the issue of depth, how do you feel about the depth overall offensively in the event that you have to deal with that same thing again this year?
Yeah, it's never a good thing when you lose 6 offensive linemen in one class. That's just so we do it. That's never a good thing, period. But the blessing in disguise was that all of those guys had an opportunity, regardless of who the opponent was, they had an opportunity to kind of break the seal and see what college football was about. Some of them had position changes in the middle of the season. Some of them had them in June, right before fall camp started. There were guys that thought they could redshirt, that were asked to start a bunch of games. So that's a blessing in disguise, and that helps us. So, we're still young, but we don't, there's no excuses. Kind of the way it goes in this program is you keep your head down and you work. If you're looking at stuff like that, as I say, FR or JR next to his name, then you're messed up. It's just work, find the guys, coach them, get them prepared to go, and go win the game. So, our bottom line is if you're good enough, you're old enough. And so that's really what it is. So if you're good enough, you're old enough, so we don't get hung up on stuff like that. But yes, to your point, huge blessing in disguise that guys like Elf, guys like Denley, guys like Noble got some playing time and are ready to come into a second year.
With all those guys leaving, how do you feel about the depth you've got coming back?
With
all the guys that you mentioned leaving, how do you feel about the depth you have coming back?
We got to find out. That's part of it. Some of these guys have come in now in August. We got 3 guys coming from high school that we've got to find out about. Can they provide depth? Can they be a Will Noble who we didn't know if he was going to help us, did help us? So we've got to find out where that depth really is in fall camp. But encourage at some positions, we've got to continue to develop depth at tackle. And that's something that we've emphasized, obviously, in these recruiting classes going forward, but that's where we are up front right now.
Major, how much does it help you that you've had a year now under your belt with Tom?
It's great. I think it's helped everybody. This whole year, just kind of knowing what's coming down the pipe, good and bad. Knowing what's coming down the pipe and anticipating off season. What are we doing during summer drills? How are we going to practice in fall camp? What's expected of you in recruiting? All those things. The second year is always better. You can be more of an anticipator on things and be better at your job.
Coach, looking at, you mentioned Duke, but besides him, which other running backs, again, figure to be in the mix as you put together a candidate running back by committee?
Well, that's the big question. Along with H, replacing DeMarcus Ayers and his production at H, is who are we going to take to replace Webb, Jackson, and Farrow at their running back position? Not borrowing Brandon Jackson anymore, Brandon Wilson, excuse me. And so, who is going to be that guy behind Duke? We've got a cast of characters right now with Khalid Kakuma. You've got Mulva Clark coming in from high school. You've got Burrell. You've got Kevin Justice. There's 4 guys there that had an opportunity in spring. Nobody really separated themselves as the guy, the backup guy. So coming into fall camp, honestly, those are the 2 things just right off the top. We've got to find our 2 and 3 tailback. We've got to find our H, and then we can go forward.
Major, you've coached and played with major, pardon the pun, huge expectations, to use that word. What do you think about coming into this season with the expectations that are surrounding this club, the school now?
I think it's great for the notoriety and the attention, and I think it's great for our university. I think it's something you can stick your chest out about and be proud, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, and that's what we've got to be willing to do, and we've got to do a great job of it as coaches, and echo that to our players. They've got to be able to do a great job to meet those expectations. But honestly, as an athlete, and even as a coach, you have those expectations of yourself every day. I mean, it's really a locker room thing. I mean, if you don't go out and get done what you need to get done, you have no respect. As an athlete, that's just the way things work. And it's kind of that way as a coach too. So regardless of whether they think it's 5-7 or 12-0, it doesn't matter. We've got to go out and produce each and every day and earn the key.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.